Hello Beam Tribe, Nick here in Ottawa, and I'd like to share a little bit today about the topic of sitting, and specifically sitting in chairs. So sitting in chairs is something that has really worked its way into our culture so deeply that we don't even really think about it as something that harms us. The world of medicine, when I was treating actively as a physio in a clinic, I realized that the world of medicine doesn't actually acknowledge sitting as a problem. And that in and of itself is a really big problem, because almost every issue I saw in clinic for people in terms of musculoskeletal problems, so problems related to their joints, their bones, or their muscles, had a large component that was derived from spending too much time in the fixed position that is sitting in chairs. So really, when I say sitting, in this context, I'm going to be talking about sitting in chairs. So the typical hip at 90 degree, knee at 90 degree position. Whereas what I'm doing right now, we call it kneeling, but really sitting is taking a break from gravity, which there's nothing wrong with. Where the harms start to come from is when you do that rest position, taking a break from gravity, in the exact position all day for long periods of time. And it's really more the static position that's harmful than it is the actual position that is sitting, right? Just like if you put salt on your food, it's not a bad thing. But if you eat a pound of salt, you'll be dead. If you sit in a chair for certain periods of time, that's okay. If you sit in a chair for 10 hours a day, it's going to result in adaptations that can then create problems with your movement. Right? All adaptations are good adaptations. Your body is this very intelligent organism that essentially takes the information you give to it and translates it into improved efficiency for how it operates. And it takes those signals in a very unbiased way. So it doesn't know that the adaptations you're going to develop from sitting in a chair are going to harm you in the long run. It does not know that. It simply takes the information you give it and translates that into positive adaptations, into adaptations that facilitate improved efficiency. So when you sit in a chair for 6, 8, 10 hours, which is actually quite easy for a lot of people when you consider driving in a car, being at a meeting, being at meals, being on the couch, being at work, these are all forms of sitting. And so we discount how much true volume of time we spend sitting in a chair. When you combine all those together, you're giving yourself, your body, essentially a massive input of information saying this human being requires this position in order to survive, requires this position for long periods of time. And so essentially your body makes you more efficient at sitting. It shortens the muscles at the front of your hips. It starts to turn your glutes into glorified pin cushions, because there's not really any need to use these if you're not fighting gravity and you're not extending your hip for long periods of time. Your hamstrings can be put in a shortened position, because that's what happens when your knee is bent, and so your hamstrings get tight. And all the tissue layers that are supposed to slide and move independently underneath your bum and in the back of your leg area, everything gets gunky and stuck down together. So these are all effects of the sitting position. And in fact, the more comfortable the chair you use, the easier it is to accumulate more and more of that time. A reason that we started to create these little small stools that are hard, that are made of wood, that don't have a back, is because you actually can't accumulate too much time sitting in them because your bum gets sore, because your body gets fatigued at trying to adopt this one static position, and that's a good reminder to switch position. And so, if we diagnose sitting-itis, we love to medicalize things, osteoarthritis, this itis, this osis, all these different names for individual isolated injuries. What we don't consider is that the systemic effect of too much time spending sitting in chairs is actually largely what determines a lot of these pathologies. And so if people just got diagnosed with sitting-itis, very non-specific, but very tailored towards identifying the root cause of why all these things happen, we would have a much different place in terms of what people are doing to resolve the sitting problem. And so it's not that you have to feel bad when you're sitting in chairs. It's not that you have to avoid chairs. It's really about broadening the tool belt that you have of positions that you can use in order to take a break from gravity, right? Mixing in sitting in a chair, standing, kneeling, squatting, lying, half kneeling. There's this massive breadth of positions that we simply don't think to adopt, and that culturally we've gotten away from, right? When you're sitting on the floor at work, you're looked down upon, when in reality the floor is teaching you massive amounts of information about exposing your joints to certain movements, certain positions. So basically, try and make as many shapes as you can during the day. Avoid spending too much time in chairs. Engineer your environment so that being on the floor is very convenient and comfortable, and being in a chair for long periods of time is uncomfortable and inconvenient. Anyway, hopefully that gives you some initial thoughts on the topic of sitting in chairs, and thanks for watching.